Quick disclaimer, in this video we talk about spoilers for the Friday the 13th franchise and WandaVision. Hey everyone, this is a project I've been wanting to start for a while now. Pretty much it's me sitting down, someone who's creative, talking to them for an hour and just seeing their processes, how they got into what they're doing, what keeps them creative, and just a bit about them. In this first episode, I interview an artist I've been following on Instagram for 4 years now. His name is Britedit, and yeah, enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to this first episode of I don't know what to call yet, but this is just going to be a series where I just talk to people who do creative things, whether it's filmmaking, music writing, or software design. Well, it's not software design, is it? You do graphic design. Hi Josh, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Josh. I do software design. No, I don't do graphic design. I Photoshop. If you ever go on YouTube and you watch videos based on anything comic book related, I'm usually the guy, one of many guys whose art they steal because they don't have any themselves.
So at the moment you've 688 pieces on your Instagram, and as of right now you've 8,846 followers. Yesterday when I was jotting this down, you had 8,808. So thanks to that little thing that happened today, you know what thing I'm talking about.
Yes, I got reposted by comicbook.com. If you don't know, comicbook.com, probably one of the biggest comic book news websites that are out there. You got like Heroic Hollywood, Screenman, and comicbook.com, and they all at times repost various pieces of fan art that get posted on the internet because people like fan art sometimes, apparently, from what I've been told. But yeah, they reposted me earlier today, and as such, whenever it happens, you get a solid boost of followers because they have a large following themselves.
And we'll get into what that piece was later. So anyway, how have you been? How have you been during this strange times? I don't know if you're aware, but a global pandemic just happened last year.
Oh, I never went outside anyway, so I've never really been able to tell the difference. Yeah, it's been fun. I graduated from university just as the pandemic started, so I kind of my plan was to graduate from my plan was to graduate from university, take a summer break, and then go into the job force.
I don't know about you, but I've been finding it very hard to get creative during this pandemic. So what would you do to try help stay creative?
Well, that's the thing. You got to try and find like creativity in the little things. I guess you say like I'll be watching a movie, or I'll be reading a book, or playing a game, or something like that, and there'll be one part that actually interests me. Like I just got back into playing The Wolf Among Us, pretty big Telltale game.
I've never actually played it.
Oh, it's wonderful. One of my favorites.
I have it downloaded, but it's just sitting there.
Well, for those that don't know the premises, it's based around fairy tales and fables and all of the old stories like Beauty and the Beast and Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, the Big Bad Wolf. All of those. It's all of those, but they all move to upstate New York and they have their own problems. But all the stories are true. Blah 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 blah. But as such, you got a lot of interesting character designs. And whenever you see something that kind of piques your eye, look at it, and I always go like, okay, how can I use that for a piece? There's been times where you want to make something more personal, so you can use it for a personal piece, but I've always been more sort of like, how can I use that in relation to a character or an upcoming project that I'm more interested in?
With The Wolf Among Us, as everyone knows, with Telltale games, they have a certain art style. Would that help influence what you're making, what you're seeing?
I kind of it helps accentuate their designs more often than not, because there's a lot of designs that if it was done in a different way, if it was done by a CG team or if it's done practically in a movie, it would probably come off as either scarier or more goofy. But the Telltale design itself does a lot to accentuate how they look, but it also gives you just enough freedom to be able to do something new with them.
So what you do in your spare time, pretty much, you play video games, you watch movies. Is there anything else you do to help stimulate creativity?
Sometimes, well, a lot of the time, I'll be scrolling through Instagram or Reddit or even like Pinterest. Because sometimes just looking at comicbook.com, the kind of process that I have is if I want to work on something, if I want, again, outlet for my creativity, but I don't have anything in my brain immediately, I'll go through like combat.com or Screen Rant or Heroic Hollywood or anything, and I'll just look at the articles that they've posted, either relating to upcoming projects, talking about older projects, anything new, just kind of whatever they make. You look at it and you go, okay, how can I turn that into an art piece? And one of the weirder things that I've recently started doing is I've just been looking at Netflix posters, because no matter what you say about Netflix's
They have
quality
very
of
creative
movies
posters.
and
Like every time you look
TV.
at Netflix, the poster always changes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like no matter what the actual quality of the show is, or the movie is, the poster always has something interesting about it. Because ultimately, the posters are made to catch your eye when you're quickly scrolling about for your Netflix binge for the 400th time. And it's like they want to make something that will, it's snappy, it gets your eye, it makes you want to look at more to do with that poster or that movie. And so I've gone into looking at the posters and thinking like, okay, how can I use this poster for something else? That like that piece in question that we were talking about that got reposted by Comic Book. The whole idea behind it came from a Star Wars poster, because I was just looking at Star Wars reference pictures for a separate commission I'm doing. I found some, I think they were posters for The Last Jedi where they had that kind of like painted stroke texture, and I thought, okay, I could use that for something. And obviously, spoilers for the last episode of WandaVision, but Evan Peters turned up, and there's been a lot of speculation about him and his role and everything. And I was like, okay, so let's combine them, see what I can do with it, and it just kind of morphed into whatever that piece became.
So, Brit-headed, where did that name come from? How did that come about?
Oh, that's an awful name that I need to. I'm actually thinking of changing my name pretty soon.
Rebrand.
Yeah, I always said to myself when I get to 10K, I'd rebrand. And I used to say that when I was at like 2K, because I was friends with people who hit 10K in like a couple of years. Admittedly, it's taken a bit long. I had to go a long way around.
Like, I'll tell you
But
a
the name
funny story before. So, you want to change your name. So, recently, I actually changed my name on Xbox Live from my original to a new one, and I kind of regret it. I'm like, oh, it's not the same. I've had that gamer tag for 10 years. My original gamer tag was Keen the Hunter, D-A Hunter. And I kind of like, I missed the cringe. But anyway, go on.
That that's like prime early 2010s.
It's
gamer
because my
tag name.
cousin, who had Xbox Live before me, his gamer tag was Luke the Slayer. So I thought it'd be cool to be Keen the Hunter.
My gamer tag came about because the Xbox was originally owned by me and my brother, and so we just, not knowing how it works, we just put in our names and it gave us like the recommended name list. So we just chose the first one off of that, and ever since then it's just stuck, and I don't want to change it because it's too good a memory. But when I when I started my Instagram account, I actually went by, I think it's Geek Humor, because I had an iPhone account under that name too. So I was like, yeah, screw it, I'll keep a brand going. And I very quickly realized that it was a dumb name and I needed to change it. And so I don't, in my infinite wisdom, I don't know why. I just thought, okay, I'm British and I'm editing. Britedit.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's weird to say because, and part of the reason I want to rechange is because everyone assumes my name is Brit. Everyone assumes my name is Bright. The amount of people I've had talk to me who've been like, "Hey, Bright," and I'm like, "That's just so you think my name is Britedit?" It's such like a tiny thing that just digs. It slowly digs its way into your soul.
So do you have any ideas for the name, or is that on the hush hush for now?
Oh, yeah. Truth be told, no. I keep talking about it, and I keep on thinking up names, and I'm also like, yeah, that's kind of stupid too. I want to go with something that sounds at least semi-professional.
I want to go with something that just screams me.
Oh,
So
I want to try and hide that from myself as much as possible.
you want to rebrand, but also just redo yourself because you're kind of known as the artist who likes to eat food with the skin on.
Yeah. I was talking to an old friend recently who I hadn't really like talked to for a good amount, and I was like, hey, have I ever told you the stuff I do on Instagram now? And they said, oh yeah, you send me that all the time. I got told afterwards that I don't send them out all the time. They were just extremely concerned and didn't want to see it. And I thought, yeah, I don't blame them.
Because half the time, whenever I see your friends put up anything about you on their stories, it's just bad things. It's just bad things.
Yeah, me and my friends on Instagram have this kind of, I guess you call it an ongoing joke, we always say that we all hate each other. We just don't want to spend time with each other. We joke that this is in fact purgatory because we're just forced to spend all of our time talking to each other. But yeah, no, they're good guys.
And it's just about who wakes up first and chooses violence first.
Exactly, yeah. It's all just about who can get there first.
So now, this date should be an important date for you. November 16th, 2016. Do you know what happened on that day?
I'm guessing that was the first post that I ever made.
Oh, if you look at the surprise section on this chat, we're going to talk about it.
Oh, so that wasn't my first post wasn't my first thing I made in Photoshop. That came about from something entirely different, which I'm sure I'll probably end up talking about. But the first comic book related thing I made, I might have a photo of it, but it was a really bad Hugo Strange, and I don't know why I made it. And it looked awful, and I don't know why I let people look at it. Oh yeah, I do have it, and I don't know why. For some reason, I thought that was better, and I was like, yeah, I'll post that. I'll start off my Instagram account with this thing, and it just like I whenever I make anything now, anything old, and I look back on it, and I reevaluate. I think, why did I let my friends let me post this? It's one of those things where I think you might feel it too. Where as a creative, when you make something, you take pride in it for a certain amount of time, but then usually more often than not, like maybe a couple of weeks, a month or two, you look back on it and you think, why did I do that? Or like, why did I do it
from
that
the few
way?
short films I've made, I understand. Even the recent music videos I've done, I understand. But
it's just like, you look at it and you go, why did I do all this? Like, it's so rough.
But this John Hamm piece as Harvey Dent, how long did this take you to do? And like, what was your work style back then?
God, I can't even remember what I did yesterday, let alone 4 years ago. I remember the one thing that I always take pride in is nowadays I'm a lot less destructive with my layers in Photoshop, and so when it comes to Photoshopping, the one thing that we always say you shouldn't be is destructive. You don't want to be able to do something to an image that you can't then reverse. And this entire image is made out of destructive pieces because the face was just made essentially by scarring the original photo and then continually doing it until it had that rough look to it. And that was just... there's so many things about this image that I don't like. I don't know if it's just the bad lighting or rather the lack of lighting, just how rough everything is.
It's funny how lighting is the most important thing in anything, whether it comes to visuals, like filmmaking, just general Photoshop.
It's all about how you light something, and this has none of it. And it's just there's no hard cuts, there's no like drawing inside the lines. It's all just rough. And for some reason, I still come back to it whenever I make a Two-Face. And I'm like, it serves as a reminder of like, hey, I actually learned how to do something on Photoshop. Like, I made something at one time that was better than something I've made before.
Well, it's all about evolution. So you can look at that now and go, oh God, oh God. So let's take that to today with what you put up recently, the piece we talked about earlier, and compare it to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I say, the biggest thing for me was just how destructive you are with a layer. Like, when you're working on a Photoshop piece, you want to be able to reverse or change anything that you've done. So if you're gonna... Yeah, exactly. If you're like merging an image or if you're doing something to the base layer, you want to make sure you have a copy of that. You want to make sure that it's something you definitely want to do. And with this piece, there's a lot of that where every new thing on there was just a new layer that I had to make. Some parts of it were painted, some parts of it were taken from effects for video channels, the smoky hair in particular. But like in comparison, it was also probably quicker than the Two-Face one. Like I think the Two-Face one took me at least a day or two.
Oh, those learning curves around editing software in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so the first time I ever used Photoshop was in my media class in year 11, I think, maybe year 10, where we had to use Photoshop to make a magazine for our assignment. That was the first time I ever had Photoshop. And at the time, I think PewDiePie just released a video where he like messed around with Obama in Photoshop or something like that. It was an old video. I was like, hey, I want to be able to do that. And I thought
originally Felix, he was studying Photoshop and he was getting good money from it, but it just wasn't what he wanted to do. So would you say that Felix was an inspiration for you starting off?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. Like there's kind of three main lines of inspiration, and then there's there's more when it comes to the reason why I decided to start an Instagram account based around it. But like PewDiePie was a big inspiration in terms of like starting in the want to learn Photoshop. Obviously there's Boss Logic, one of the biggest Instagram artists out there.
He's
Who
doing so well for himself.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend recently, and we were saying like it's kind of insane what he's done because
From
nine
fan
times
art
out
to
of
DVD covers.
yeah, like I mean, he's got a meeting with Kevin Feige on Thursday, I
I've
think.
seen that.
Yeah, and it's like it goes from being, hey, you're just creating fan art. Like back in the day, if you were making fan art, the best you could hope for was like you get to Boss Logic levels, which means you get reposted and you can sell your stuff, and maybe if you're lucky, you go to Comic Con. And now it's like, oh, if you do it well enough, you can literally work for the companies that you're taking assets from. And it's just like it's weird to think that like those two were probably big inspirations in starting, and then as soon as I started, I saw Spider Monkey and stuff like that, and Spider Monkey in particular was a big inspiration too because his stuff just had. He was the first time that I learned you could have a style that was different from other people's because at the time that I was starting, that was kind of a boom. And everyone sort of just took Boss Logic style of hyper realistic and stylized lighting and glows and shadows and like ran with it. Like every suit was made from a body that was just smudged with very loose textures on it, and like they just ran with it. And he was the first guy I saw that was like, hey, you can do something new with this. You can go for a realistic style. You can go for halfway between realistic and stylized. And that was a big inspiration into what I do now more than anything.
Because following you since 2017, it's been amazing to see you evolve. Just basic lighting, just the little things. And one thing I also really like is how you hide your logo on most of your pictures now.
Yeah, that's that's if I'm being real, that's probably more challenging than the actual artwork.
Because you don't want it to stick out, but you also want to be like, hey, this piece is mine.
Yeah, like whenever you add it to somewhere, you want it to be somewhere that like if it gets stolen, you can point it and be like, hey, that's my logo, that's my thing. But you don't want it to be so obvious that someone's not going to be able to like you don't want it to be so obvious that people aren't going to repost it at all. There's a very thin gray area.
So, how would your workflow begin? Like, would it be current trends such as WandaVision happening now and what else? Or just some days you think of something obscure or just something you like, or is it a bit of everything?
It's kind of tough. So more often than not, I'll have like a burst of energy and be like, hey, I wanna edit something. I'll open Photoshop and I'll think, okay, my first thought's always, okay, what's big? What's just happened? So recently it's been WandaVision, it's been Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's been a lot of Marvel stuff.
As it always is.
Yeah, it was a bit of sometimes if I do too much Marvel things, I think, okay, what kind of DC things are happening so I can mix it up a bit. But that's kind of I guess the broad strokes. I never really have a plan for anything. Like I think, okay, WandaVision's big, MMP is big. Let's do something MMP is related, and that's about it. I never like I know a guy about digital, Dalton. His process is like he likes to think through a design first. He likes to think, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to go super realistic? Am I going to go more comic booky? He likes to have reasons behind everything he does, and I'm just kind of like, I'll open up Photoshop and just throw a bunch of stuff in it and be like, okay, what can I do from this?
See what sticks, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
And what is your workstation? What do you work on? What peripherals?
I used to work on a really bad desktop that was years old.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, it had 4 GB of RAM and no graphics card, and that was it. And then I think for my birthday one year, someone who's far more tech savvy than I am got me 4 more GB of RAM, so I had 8 gigs, and I was like, I could actually open like Photoshop and do stuff without like being so slow, and it was wonderful. Then I went off to uni, so I was going to be away from my desktop for a good period. I had a laptop that I was using for uni work, and I was like, okay, I'll just edit on this instead. And my laptop, I think, had 8 gigs too. Didn't have a graphic card still, so it's basically the same thing. And slowly, just as my uni work started to slow down, my laptop began to basically die, and I couldn't use it outside of charging, so it lost all ability to hold charge. It was getting slower and slower, so I saved up, and then around my birthday this year, no, around Christmas, sorry, I got a new laptop, which is the one I'm recording on now, and it's a gaming laptop. It's not the best or anything, but it's good enough. It's got a video card, it's got I think it's still got 8 GB of RAM, but it's got 512 SSD or something. And I've got a mouse, which I didn't really buy before. I always edited it on a trackpad, which is a terrible idea, and I wouldn't wish that on my wife
Again,
anyway.
humble beginnings.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, now editing this, and it's always weird because whenever you edit on something worse, you get good at being able to do that. So you get good at shortcuts and ways around stuff, or you get good at being able to practice that, and then you switch to something new, and you've got to like relearn everything that you've already learned before.
Because one thing I find important when I'm trying to be creative is the environment I'm in. Like at the moment, over the last year, I've been just trying to do my room up and up, build the desk.
Oh,
For
yeah.
you, what type of environment do you need? Like, obviously, you do a lot of stuff in your room, and would that help you?
See, I don't know if the environment makes much difference to me. Like, as long as I can see my laptop screen, that's kind of it. Like, for the majority of my Instagram life, I've been at university. So I've grown used to kind of editing in my room on my own. Typically, I'll hop on Discord with some people and just kind of chat it out, so it's not so alone. Plus, you can get some opinions on what you're working on while you're working on it.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit of a fidgety bitch. I need something to have in my hands. I need something to play with. I have to get up, I have to prance around. And on my desk at the moment, I've literally puzzles. I have a fidget spinner. Yes, remember those. And a fidget cube. And then at the back corner of my room is literally all me nerd stuff that because I feel like I'm the type of person, because I want to do filmmaking and whatnot, I'm very visual, and I will literally pick up my toys and start playing with them, even start framing them. That's what I do.
See, that's the thing. I'm a pretty fidgety person, but I can kind of, if I'm working on Photoshop, all of my energy goes into Photoshop.
Because like there'll be times where I'm just typing, and then I see something, like it could be a lens cap. I'm like, oh, look at this thing. So I don't know if that's just bad procrastination, bad distractions, or just it does help, because I find that when I'm writing, that if I try force it, it won't come out. But if I like write for 5 minutes straight and then just wander around for 2 minutes, sit back down, write, wander again, that I actually get stuff done. But then again, considering we're all locked inside, what else can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty fidgety person. Like I bite my nails and I chew my pens. I need something.
I'm the exact same.
I need something to be doing. And I don't get as fidgety physically, but what I'll do is like I'll be working on a thing and I'll skip processes because I'll start painting in light because that's just fun to me. And then it always bites me in the ass because I'll do it and then I need to change everything, so I need to get rid of that layer and do it all again. It's a terrible habit I need to break out of.
Now, let's play a guessing game. What do you think was the first post I saw from you?
You said 2017, right?
Yep.
That's a tough one.
When I send it, it's going to make too much sense. That's all I'm saying.
That's the thing. Like I say, I barely remember what I did yesterday, let alone what I posted through the entirety of 2017. I know 2017 was, I guess, early days, quote unquote. So I won't lie. I know it's not going to be some of my my best stuff. I remember that there was a period of time where people just made a bunch of Pickle Rick jokes and Pickle Rick posters, and I unfortunately gave in to do the same. So I feel like it's going to be one of those.
Go on, have a look. I told you it was going to make too much sense.
Oh, God. Yeah. I still remember making those.
Remember when Pickle Rick was funny? It's still the funniest shit I've ever seen.
He turned himself into a pickle.
So, since 2016, what do you think the biggest thing you've improved on is in your work?
Without being too generic, I guess like the fine detailing. Like I used to be very broad with my work, particularly my lighting. Like if I was ever doing lighting for something, my way to do it would just be get a white brush and go about one side with a very general area, and then tone it down, and then finish it. And now I've tried to learn how to do more with that. Like I've learned how to do specific colored lighting. I've learned better methods to do lighting, and I've learned ways to paint it in individually. Like if you're working on a shirt or something, the old me would just kind of get a nice round brush, soft it, and just go over everything by the edges, and it'd be really crappy and shit. And now I've kind of learned like, hey, if I'm going to do that, I need to paint in individual wrinkles to make the shirt look like a shirt, and not just this white piece of paper.
It's about the texture of what you're looking at. Like one thing that I'm still constantly trying to master, even in my own time, is just lighting.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, like if a movie's not lit well, then you're not gonna have a good time watching it.
Well, to counter argue, the first Avengers movie.
Okay, I think we were all just starstruck by that point.
because I think what brings anything to life is just how everything looks. That's why with video games, why ray tracing's the big buzzword at the moment. And from
Yeah.
looking at your pieces, I think what you improved on the most is just general lighting. Like, because the face, yeah, that has to be something well lit, but it's just the details, like on the shoulder, on the clothes, how it creases around. Stuff like that is what I pay attention the most to. And that's what I think you've improved on the most.
I never know how to take compliments, but
I'm the exact
thank
same,
you.
but don't worry, I'm still trying to learn lighting as well. And one
Uh,
thing I've noticed a lot as well over the last 2 years is celebrities interacting a lot with artists. I know that Mr. Homelander Anthony Starr is a bit of a memer himself and the amount of stuff he puts up on his story and likes. So,
yeah.
on your own pieces, have any celebrities ever liked them?
That's a good question. There's a guy called Derek Theller he's in a sitcom called Baby Daddy, I think. He was a front runner for Shazam, I believe, and he's also in a cancelled Marvel show called New Warriors. He's much like Tony Stark, where he'll interact with people and he'll interact with posts about him, specifically with fan art of him. He's very lovely like that. But short of that, I can't think of anyone in my immediate memory of interacting with me. I know, I'm friends with Don and Item Spider Monkey, and that's like admittedly they're bigger pages, and as such they do get more interaction with people like that. So much so that I know Item made a thing of Thanos, which ended up on the Seth Meyers show with Josh Brolin, which was kind of surreal to see.
Because I seen the other day he made a Darkseid piece that even the Zack Snyder Justice League page shared.
I didn't even know about. Oh no, I know that they commented on it.
Oh,
I didn't know
no,
they
they
shared
didn't share it. Sorry, they commented on it. You're right, but I do remember seeing that, which I just think is crazy. That like I remember
Yeah.
around the time when I started following you, where like the only really named digital artist, fan artist, was Boss Logic. So I think around Infinity War and whatnot, when everyone was just speculating, I say you like during your post, you were just making posts speculating what's going to happen. Do you think that led to the increase of like celebrities or just producers over at Marvel, DC, just being more hint, hint, nudge, nudge?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm sure like the practice of having your agent leak your casting to Variety or Deadline or whatever has been a while. That's been around for a while because it builds buzz, it builds your career, that kind of thing.
Leaking is now a tactical strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like fan artists have always been kind of vultures when it comes to that. Like we've always kind of, as soon as you catch on to that, you're straight over there. You're working on a piece. Like there was a Keanu's Craven thing that got released yesterday, and since then I know 4 people who are working on something like that. And it's just kind of like I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was a development for sure in the next few years. Whereas in they like direct, I already know certain fan pages, and by that I mean websites who run the kind of news about this stuff. They've contacted some of my friends and have been like, "Hey, can you make this piece so that we could post it and boost your engagement and turn boost ours and blah 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 blah."
It's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal to see that, to be like able to interact with these huge pages just willy-nilly. But like I wouldn't be surprised if that was an early form of it, where at some point like an agent's going to contact them so that they could contact us to make a thing so that they could build hype. I know of celebrities who've done this. Like I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I know a couple of celebrities, I should say, who have messaged people asking, "Hey, can you do this fan art of me as this character? Because I'm trying to
Wasn't
build
it
a campaign."
Drake Bell who was initially cast as Robin? He did something like that, I think, a couple of years
He,
ago. He was dropping
yeah,
lots of
I think
hints.
he tried to run a campaign for that. I remember there was a girl who tried to run a campaign for Kate Bishop because she was in Power Rangers. She was in a Power Rangers series, and she was trying to run that. I was gonna say Ty Simpkins from Iron Man 3, but I remembered that me and a group of people made a Young Avengers artwork which featured him, and as such, he got in contact with us and was just like, "Hey, this is really cool. Like, thank you for this," which was again kind of surreal. But yeah, like it's a process I'm not going to be surprised if we see an expansion of in the next few years.
Because I feel like, again, with Infinity War, because of all the speculation for that, I think Marvel do it best where they know what their audience wants.
Yeah.
Like DC, on the other hand, like, the whole controversy with Robert Pattinson, I think Marvel like to play it more safe, which is why they interact interact a lot more with digital artists because, like, people will flock to your account and your friend's account just to get their opinions across. Like, your Mephisto piece today, people, I've seen half the comments are like, oh, this would be cool, or oh no, this won't be, especially with Evan Peters coming back.
Yeah, like I think Marvel know what people want and they know what to leak. But also I think Marvel just have more confidence in kind of what they're making. Like I think with DC, I can understand it. If you release 4 short films and then 3 of them get awful reviews or like 15,000 dislikes, like you're not going to be inclined to release anything, and you're not going to be inclined to release anything about any future ones, no matter how good they actually are.
Did you hear that a Legend of Zelda show that was in development was actually cancelled because it leaked?
Yeah, and there was a Star Fox show, right?
I think so. I'm not too sure, but with
Yeah.
Nintendo, they like taking everything back as soon as they can.
Yeah, they like it leaked out, and then as soon as it got leaked, they just went, "No, we're not doing it anymore." Which is
Nope, you
like
ruined our fun.
a true Nintendo move.
Besides graphic design, is there any other type of creative outlet you've always wanted to try?
Well, I mean, when I was in school, I studied film, and I did a couple of film courses, film and TV course at university for a couple of semesters. When I was younger, I used to want to write because my English teacher told me that I had a good writing style, which I kind of wanted to take back up following university again, because I was talking to a friend of mine. This was just I'd literally received my dissertation, like I handed it in, and I just received the physical copy back, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was in the process of writing hers, and I was like, hey, do you want me to read over it, just see how it's going? And she was like, yeah, do you mind if I read yours? And I was like, yeah, go for it, because by that point I'd lost all care about it. I'd got a pass, so I didn't give a shit about that. Like it was the worst essay that I've ever written, and I hold so much contempt for it because I wrote 12,000 words in the process of 10 hours. I just I was done with it. When I got the grade back, I refused to look at the grade for I refused to look at the grade for about a month after I got it back, just because I was so anxious about the result. The only reason I looked at it was because I had to see my advisor, who forced me to. But yeah, I handed her that, and she was like, I know you don't think it's good, but there's like a weird headset. There's like a weird, I want to keep reading it. Like it really entices you, and I don't know why, but that kind of sparked my interest in writing again. And I was thinking like I might get back into that, but I need to relearn a bunch of stuff.
I remember in secondary school, I used to love creative writing, just writing in general, which is funny from someone who's terrible handwriting, but because of how stupid our testing system was, I remember the first set of exams we had to do, I did well on the creative writing, but failed on everything else, and my English teacher was like, hang on a second, you're brilliant at English, you're staying in the higher level of the class. And I remember usually our essays, they'd be like, okay, it has to be 8 A4 pages, nothing more, nothing less, and then there's me, who's the only one in the class who got away with submitting 46 pages, because I just got too into it. No one else was allowed, so that was my special privilege that I got. But then I remember my last secondary school exam, it was just a crock of shit. Like, because you have to study, like, Shakespeare, you have to study a book, you have to study a movie.
Yeah.
And the questions they give are just such crap. And then it's like, oh, by the way, write an essay as well. And I'm like, I have 2 hours to do all of this. How do you expect me to write a 4-page essay while doing all this stuff?
I was going to ask that. Like, are you more of an exam person or more of like a coursework guy?
Me, I love doing things physically. Like when I was in college, like the reason why I dropped out of college was because we were watching the entire course on YouTube. Like literally people I watch at home in my own time. The first year was great because I learned pretty much how I learned to use a camera, audio equipment, basic editing, and I enjoyed it so much. Then the second year, because they kind of just redid the entire course, so they didn't care about our year because ours was pretty much last year, but the new first year's like, this is a new course, we're gonna have fun with this one. What about the second years? Oh, what about them? So as the months went on, like I'd see the first years running around with cameras having fun, and we're sitting in class watching YouTube, and I was like, no, I don't like this anymore. So I just kind of went out and pursued it for a year. But
I respect that.
College is and isn't for everyone, because I believe in our line of work, it's nice to have a piece of paper, but it's more about what you've done.
That's the thing. Like, you can write an essay on how well a film's made, but that doesn't make you a filmmaker.
You can say, hey, I have a piece of paper that says I can technically make movies, or Or you can go with John, who's been making crappy short films since he was 7 years old, but always had a love for it and now runs a little production company.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've got a piece of paper on my bookcase that says, I know I've got a media degree, so I know how media works. I know how to analyze media. I know how to operate media. But that's just as good that's no good if I don't have anything that I can back that up with. Which like I can flaunt that about all day long and be like, hey, I have evidence of it. But a certificate's only as good as the things that you've actually done.
Because the type of jobs I've been offered, it's been more like, oh, you have a camera, come with me tomorrow. Instead of going, oh, you can do it, but do you have your own equipment? Because with me, since nearly 3 years now, I have just been spending like 70% of my money on equipment that I know I'm not going to use for years. And then when I had enough equipment to be like, okay, I have everything I need to start making, a little pandemic happened. And then I'm like, okay, I guess the universe is trying to tell me something. I'll back down a bit.
Yeah, again, same here. It's like, I just came out of university, I was already going to job offers, and then suddenly, bang, pandemic. So the last year's just been spent.
Lose all creativity.
the last
all
year,
hope.
The last year's just been spent trying to hone what little skills I left university with.
So of course I'm obliged to ask this controversial question because type of stuff we like. Marvel versus DC. Is there any point in Marvel versus DC anymore? Or can't everyone just get along?
And I've always been under the influence of you can like both, and like I always say that the world nowadays it always feels like it's getting more black and white. Like it always feels like it's more just sort of, oh, you don't like this, you must like this. Like even in politics, like it moves from being like, hey, oh, you don't like the right wing, well, you must be left wing, or oh, you don't like left. It's like, no, I could,
or you could be like me who just doesn't understand anything and I'm like, why are people fighting?
That's it. See, I'm the complete opposite. I completely understand why everything's happening, and I just don't give a shit anymore. When I did,
because I remember when Deadpool was coming out, and I was excited. People were like, oh, why are you excited for some stupid superhero movie? But of course, after everyone's seen it, that was really cool. Oh, superhero movies are cool. I'm like, screw everyone. And then that's when the buzz kind of kicked off because of Deadpool.
Yeah, no, now we're getting Deadpool 3.
Oh, man, like, I don't know. That's going to be a weird one.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it now that they can actually license the characters that they want to use.
Because Marvel comics are objectively bad, in my opinion, but they just nailed the formula for movies. Whereas...
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess I'd be inclined to agree.
And then I was going to say that it's the opposite for DC. DC movies are hit or miss, but most of their comic runs are amazing.
See, that's
it's been falling a bit flat recently.
I was gonna say, like, until like recently, DC seems to be slowly switching. Like their movies seem to be getting slightly better, and then they suddenly you got Future State and you've got Heroes Reborn, and it's all just going.
My favorite stories, like literally most of the comics I have, are just Elseworld stories of Batman and Joker. Because I hate when they make Batman like, no Bruce Wayne, only Batman only here. But I love when you actually see the man struggle, which is why I like the Telltale version of the Batman, because you get to see the struggles between Bruce Wayne and Batman, which is one thing.
One of my favorite adaptations is the Telltale one.
Like it's so interesting to like choose between whether you want to be the Batman or Bruce Wayne, because I see them both as different entities, but
the same person.
The way that Pattinson's one is going is, from what I get, is he's addicted to being Batman, that he's losing Bruce Wayne, he's losing the humanity. And I would love to see if they toy with the fact if he like contemplates to take someone's life but doesn't. Like there's a lot I'm looking forward to that movie, because again, I love Batman when he's a bit unhinged. Yeah, he's just in the moment, but he has to snap out of it.
My favorite version. No, I'd say my favorite version is the Telltale version. Not solely because of the way that they do the parallels between Batman and Bruce Wayne and
I also just love the twist they did on his parents as well.
Yeah, but like just in general, the stories and the other characters in that universe are done so well. Like
and the Joker as well, I enjoyed.
I was gonna say
how he was just.
It's probably my favorite
everything
version
around
of the Joker. Like obviously you got the Killing Joke story where the Joker was born in Ace Chemicals, where he falls into a vat of chemicals, everything, it's a classic. But
the unofficial official story.
Yeah, I love the idea that they're using this one though, where it's like, oh, he's already physically and mentally weird, but then his relationship with Batman and Bruce Wayne, it like mentally breaks him. yeah, she's the boss in this, and it's like I just love the idea that their relationship is what mentally breaks him, and it just happens to be in Ace Chemicals. So the Joker, as we know it, is made in Ace Chemicals. So like it still works in tangent with the comics and the stories that they give, but it's also something completely new and original, and it's just it's perfect. But
Because two stories I'd recommend to you if you haven't read them is Joker, the one about the Joker, and Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth.
yes, I every time I go to my bookshop, I always look at that one, and I always read through as much as I can because I don't
Because
want
that
to
was
go
the
out.
first graphic novel I ever got, and just every time I just fall in love with it a bit more.
The
And
art
then
style always just gets me. It's so beautiful and so
And then
haunting.
Joker, it's this interesting take on the Joker where he comes out of Arkham Asylum and he's very jaded. It was written shortly after Heath Ledger's portrayal, so he has the scars, but it's just interesting to see more. Like, it's all from the perspective of his new right-hand man,
Ah,
but I'd
interesting.
highly recommend that one as well. I don't even know what else I can't even see, but I'll recommend them after.
Yeah,
But
I like that.
you also have your own podcast, Semi Pro. Do you want to talk about that and what you talk about on that?
Yeah, well, when we started, the idea behind it was that I think every week or every other week, we get like a creative on, and we talk about processes, and we talk about their work, and we talk about them, and then because of the podcast and all of that sense, we kind of had to move on from that idea because it's still something that we want to do, and when we get the chance to, like, we like to do it, but it's just it's kind of tough to do that with people, and plus we also wanted to, well, we're also going to keep it like comic book and news related, and now we've kind of morphed into just talking about the movies that we like and so and so.
Which again is creativity. It's about what influences you, which I think is important.
Yeah, that's the thing. We just talk about whatever's happening, like whatever's on mind. Every week we record our podcast, and afterwards we're like, hey, so what do you want to talk about next week? And recently we both, me and Dalton, we got back into Twin Peaks, the TV show, and so we decided, okay, let's talk about that. Like every week we'll watch one season, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll watch the next season, and talk about it, so on and so forth.
So
And
it's kind of half I want to watch is half homework.
yeah, exactly. Like I mean, we always made the next thing that we're recording in a few hours is Godzilla versus Kong from
As of
1963.
recording this, maybe it's already out when this releases.
Yeah, there's a good chance, I won't lie, but he's making me watch Godzilla versus Kong from 1963
Radioactive lizard versus monkey.
versus yeah, Monkey Lizard Man, and we joke about how he likes me to suffer because he's making me watch this 1963 B movie, and the last thing that he said to me, like the last thing he said to me before I started talking to you about this was, "It's awful, Josh. It's so terrible." And I'm like,
I love getting people to watch bad movies. I remember during the Christmas time, I got my girlfriend to watch my all-time guilty pleasure horror movie, Freddy vs. Jason. And the thing she said to me right after it was, Cian, that is the worst thing I've ever seen. And I'm not going to lie, I died a little bit because it's just such a guilty pleasure movie for me, because that's kind of the movie that kickstarted horror off for me. Because I'm
oh,
like, ooh, this is so weird. And then I went off, bought all the Friday the 13th, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. By the time I was 11... So, like, that kind of just morphed my taste and love for horror
I
and just anything cheesy.
I was gonna go on the Friday the 13th for Halloween last year, but I couldn't find anyone sending the box
Oh,
set.
they're so, like,
I love a
I'm not
good
gonna lie,
slasher.
the Friday the 13th are weird because the first one is a bit like it's the black sheep. Everyone's like, it's the first one, but we kind of just forget about it because it's not
When,
Jason Voorhees.
yeah, that's the thing. You talk, like whenever someone talks about Friday the 13th, the first one's not Jason Voorhees. The second one is, and then he doesn't end up getting the mask until I think part 4 or even
Part 3,
part 3.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's like
iconic mask.
it takes 3 movies to get to this person that you know.
In the fifth one, it's not even Jason, it's someone imitating him. And then part 6 is where it all goes bonkers.
It's
Zombie Jason is
yeah.
born.
I was gonna say that's Jason. No, wait. Gotta try and remember all these now. I've seen them all at some point or another. Part 4 is Jason Goes to Hell.
No,
Part
part 4
5.
is the final chapter.
Part
Jason
4 is
Goes to
final
Hell with
chapter.
part 9.
Yeah, right. Part 4 is the final chapter because they kill off Jason and then they bring back the imitator Jason.
In part 5. Which Tommy Jarvis comes back after, hacking his head open at the end of part 4.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then I have to try and remember all of these movies. And yeah, and then it's the final chapter, and then there's one where Jason's just a tiny worm thing.
Oh, that's Jason Goes to Hell. That's the only one I haven't seen. That's part 9.
That's awful. That's like I've watched them all at one point or another, and that is the worst.
Like, I even get enjoyment from Jason X because it's dumb.
Oh,
But I think
Jason X might be my favorite.
my favorite is part 7, the one with not Carrie, telekinesis girl, just because it was just fun. Like, it was just different.
I always get sad whenever I think about the rights issues that exist with Friday the
Oh
13th.
man, they're shutting down the servers for the game. I never played the game, but the fact that it
I
led to that.
I play the game. The game's not good. The game only works if everyone in it is someone that you know, and it
Because I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed the '09 remake. My only criticism is that there's too much nudity in it, and it's kind of distracting. Because besides that, it's a genuine good
yeah.
Friday the 13th movie.
I love Friday the 13th. The 2009 one, and it really sucks that the two people who've made Friday the 13th, like the two people who are in the production company, I believe, is they've fallen out, and as such, they can't get the rights together to make a new movie until one of them dies.
Because the sequel to the remake was gonna be set during the winter, which I thought was gonna be so cool.
Yeah, and
Just I love the visual of blood on snow. Just
have you ever seen anything through the plot about it?
no, I just heard that it was just set during snow time, and there was like
They
a mock poster.
there was I think it was going to be about Jason's dad.
Oh, I did hear about that because I remember in the comics they loosely like he was abusive. Like a lot of people don't know, but there is actually a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason. They were gonna make it a movie, but the production companies kept fighting over who wins. But it's Freddy versus Jason versus Ash from The Evil Dead. So they turned it into a comics.
Which another great remake is the Evil Dead remake, and I will always stand by that.
I still have to watch the TV show.
Yeah, same. Well, that's the thing. I've watched. So I watched Evil Dead 2 when I was really young, to the point where I can't even remember
Oh
anymore.
man, that movie scared me when I was younger, but I loved it so much. And looking back at it now, you can see just the rafters through the roof. You can just see all the mistakes, but it's just so much fun. Even Freddy Krueger's glove is in one of the scenes.
Oh yeah, and like, that's the thing. Like I own the Blu-ray trilogy set, and I think so. Me and Don do this thing where we'll watch a movie together and do a commentary for it. And I think the next one we're doing is Evil Dead.
I still haven't seen the original Evil Dead, but
the original Evil Dead is not good.
I
Like,
get,
the
I
original
get
Evil
that when
Dead
they
was
semi
made by,
rebooted it, but like Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 2, they're just so different, but just so great.
Oh yeah, they're so much fun. The fun facts about the Evil Dead, the first one is I believe that it was like Sam Raimi's uncle's cabin is where they filmed, and it was something that he and Bruce Campbell just made because they were bored, essentially.
I
And
wish
I
I had
always
that
loved.
freedom.
If you ever hear about their friendship, it's great because Bruce Campbell was a jock in high school.
Oh,
And
I wouldn't have guessed that one.
well, Bruce Campbell used to be friend. Like he used to bully. I think he used to bully Sam Raimi in high school. But then they were both in the same theater class, so they ended up becoming best mates.
So just every time he's like, whatever movies I make, you're gonna be in them as just some dickhead. Like even the trilogy, the Spider-Man trilogy.
That is why I can't wait for Doctor Strange 2.
Because he's gonna be in it somehow. What if he comes back as Fat Mysterio?
That's the thing. I was talking to Don about this, and we were talking about how he can appear, and we were thinking how great would it be if he existed as a Mysterio for like a movie that's being made about Spider-Man in universe. I can't wait to see. Like I'm excited for Doctor Strange 2 for many reasons.
So
But,
am I, especially now that we're seeing some of the horror elements teased with Vision's corpse. Spoiler alert.
oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
like I knew something was off with him, but it still caught me off guard.
Well, yeah, I didn't expect them to show it.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm one of the only people who actually enjoys the Doctor Strange movie, just because
I love Doctor Strange.
like,
Doctor Strange is one of my favorite.
people are
MCU
like, oh,
movies.
it's just Iron Man 1, but it's just the possibilities I was thinking with it, especially now that I can see where WandaVision can lead into it, and just the title itself, Multiverse of Madness, that's just a kick-ass title.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. It's such everything about the movie, and again, this is to do with Sam Raimi directing. It's like everything about it seems like a perfect '80s B movie horror, and I can't wait.
It's just like this big, powerful, like one of the most powerful sorcerers in the universe. Like I can't even begin to speculate, but I can't wait for it. But
Yeah, and it's like I even love the fact that the title's a reference to a great John Carpenter movie, In the Mouth of Madness.
Carpenter, people claim him to be the granddaddy of horror, and I kind of go by that.
Did you ever know that John Carpenter's a big gamer?
Jesus Christ, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I think his son started playing video games, and as such, he started playing video games, and he's a huge fan of it. Like he loves Assassin's Creed 3, Dishonored, and God of War.
Huh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
and even he loves them so much that for the last like 10 years, he's been trying to get a Dead Space movie made.
Holy shit, you're joking.
Seriously, and he wants to direct it.
Like, I'm watching this K drama with my girlfriend called Sweet Home, and every time I see a monster, I'm like, it looks like that certain necromorph from Dead Space. But Dead Space, oh man, that's another can of worms for another day. But that series, I love so much. But another thing I want to
I,
talk about was an endeavor you started last year, Combination Creative, with your buddies.
Yes, yeah, it's still going. It's a bit tough because the
COVID.
idea behind it was just, we thought, hey, we talk and we basically spend a good amount of pretty much every day together. And so, we
Mm.
also all know certain aspects of Photoshop in different ways. So why not just combine them and create a way for people
So
to
just give a
get
quick
content out of that?
rundown of what the project is and what you offer. And then I want to talk about how it works, like how three different people, just
Uh,
manage to make one product.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. So, well, the idea behind it was just like, hey, we wanted to offer people the ability to make concept art or DVD covers or posters or cosplay edits or whatever Photoshop needs you do or logos, anything, we would offer it. And the idea behind it was because we had a like 3-step process where one of us creates this initial concept. So, I think what we ended up doing was Don would make an initial concept because he's a very creative guy and he has the best concepts I've seen out of anyone. So he'd make that initial concept. Then I would take that and refine it a bit more, add on some extra flair, take away some of the bit of overcomplicated stuff to make it a bit more just, let's say, refined version. And then we'd pass that on to Item, who would then do a full-on fledged thing where he'd also add his own flair, but he'd also get to just refine it more because
Mm.
he's the most knowledgeable when it comes to Photoshop in terms of how to make something look clean and professional. And so we just kind of left that up to him, which we basically trialed it with a couple of different processes and characters and whatnot. And we found that the process that we had worked significantly well. Like we went through a couple of different ones. Like originally, I think I made the original idea, which Dalton then took and fleshed out, and it didn't work as well. So we tried switching it around, and I think we found our flow now. It's just we started this in the middle of a pandemic where people can't go outside and film and be in
I
cosplay.
understand that one.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I find frustrating as wanting to be a filmmaker is, especially when it comes to storytelling, is a lot of filmmakers and storytellers, they'll interject themselves a lot into a story. So if I'm writing a story and I ask for like feedback, they'll go, it's cool and all, but this is what I would have done. Like that sentence I hate the most.
Yeah.
Like,
I completely get to
instead of
why.
going, I like this concept, I would have done this, not like this is what I would have done. It's like this is just one thing I would have done. But besides that, like, because whenever I find when I give someone a piece of my work to read, half the time I'm expecting an abridged version of it back. And
But
like, do you feel like in the beginning there was a little bit of that, or did it just all work naturally?
so me, Don, and I have known each other for about 5 years now, and it's just I think because of that we kind of know how each other works.
Mm.
Like and every now and again, there's a bit of backseat creating, we call it, or backseat designing, but even then, it works because I think we all trust each other. Like we all trust each other to tell. Plus, we also understand each other. So when Dolan or I are making a concept, or if I'm making a concept, they understand what I'm going for. They will ask to understand what I'm going for, and then we offer help within that sort of bubble instead of like they say like if you're making a horror movie and then someone starts telling you, oh, you should start doing this as a drama or something. It's like,
Mm.
well, no, because that's the point. It's a horror. Like you can instruct or criticize within that bubble, but as soon as you stop like going outside of that and talking about an entirely different genre or an entirely different movie, like it becomes basically pointless to any criticism because it's like it's so far gone from what you're trying to make that it's
Because
useless.
one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies, Nocturnal Animals, is, and I find this a lot with filmmakers, is everybody only writes about themselves, which is one thing I've always tried not to do because even reading other people's works, I'm like, you're just writing about yourself. I feel like with graphic design, because it's interesting seeing everyone's perspective on it, whereas like with WandaVision now, I'm loving seeing everyone's interpretation, like the one you did the other day with Wanda holding Vision, and then someone else can do something completely different. I think it was Spider Monkey who did the one with Vision's corpse, and Wanda over the shoulder.
Yes, yes.
I find that interesting. Whereas in my world of filmmaking, it's I'm better writer than everyone. If anyone criticizes my story, they're wrong. So
But yeah, that's the thing, and it happens in the art world too, where people are very headstrong in what they're creating, and typically, like you can suggest some, you can give them some suggestions that work within the realm of what they're making, but then they say like, oh no, but this is my design or whatever, or like and it's just sometimes when I see that, or if I hear that in a group chat or whatever, I'm just thinking like, I don't like that because
you
like,
can't really steal a concept or just a
well,
trend, we'll say.
yeah, exactly. And well, it's like I've been in group chats before where someone would send their work, and we'd say, hey, that looks good. You should try doing this, or maybe try switching these around for these ones, or something like that. And the person would be like, yeah, no, but that doesn't like fit what I'm going for. And I'm like, okay, so what are you going for? And they'll tell me, or they'll tell the other person. We'll just keep talking about it, and then but eventually it becomes clear that that person doesn't want any suggestions. They just want endorsement, and they want just like us to tell them, oh, you're so great at this. And that's the kind of that's the mentality that I think I hate the most,
Because
because
I remember a couple of years ago, a story I came up with. I remember I was telling it to someone, and they said, oh, that's good. And then, like, 3 days later, I was hanging out with them again, and they go, hey, Keane, I have this great idea for a story. And I'm like, okay, go on. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, that sounds very similar to the story I told you the other day. Like, that's just how bad it can get sometimes.
yeah,
Like,
well, no, that's the thing though. It's even then, it's like I know people where I've made something, Item's made something, one of our friends has made something, and then suddenly all over the place, pieces start popping up which are very very similar in essence to that, or in the style or whatever in the vein, and it's
or
just like,
filter change.
yeah, well, I feel to change, but it's just like, it's like, the one thing that we always say is you need to be creative in your way. Like, we can give you suggestions and we can try and help you with that, but it needs to be your way. And it's like, we've got friends, people who will routinely ask other people for constant help with whatever they're making, and it's just like we end up having to tell them, we have to be like, hey, I understand that you want help from this person because you think they're better.
But you won't
Yeah, it's
learn
like, yeah, it's
anything.
like, I understand you want help from this person because you think they're better, but like, that's not going to do anything but help you copy their ways. Like, you need to experiment and go on your own. And like, yeah, it might not look good, but you do it and then you keep doing it over and over again
It's
until
a
it does.
reminder because with me, like I said, over the last couple of years, I've been buying and buying equipment, but because I've so many ideas and stuff I wanted to do, I got overwhelmed, and then an epiphany happened to me the other week, and I've been teasing this a bit to you, is like, I should just make a short film that just stars me, and I have to do it all myself as a baseline. And I'm like, that is an ingenious challenge that I'm going to hate myself for. And I've been slowly picking away at that because, like, my goal is to kind of semi-production company. Like, I want to own all the equipment, but I want to get a reliable team to help me with my ideas. But unfortunately, with this line of work, it's always, I'm gonna direct, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I just pretty much want to put myself to the test, which you pretty much do every time you make a new piece. And I'm like, okay, I have to prove that I'm a good filmmaker, that I know things, that I can't just get a group of people, give them a 30-minute crash course on how to use equipment. It's like, I have to do it myself. And I genuinely can't wait to do
I
it.
look forward to seeing what you
And
make.
I'll tell you a bit about it once this ends, because I find with me that if I tell too many people the story, then the story is
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
already.
Well, part of the story is the surprise.
But anyway, do you have any advice for people just starting off in graphic design?
I mean, it's what we always say to people, and it's really cliche, but it's just like, practice. Like, watch tutorials, use that for your own thing. The biggest thing that I can ever say to someone is just be creative in your own way. Do what makes you happy, and just keep trying and keep trying and keep expanding until you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, this is my style, or this is what I want to create. And if you've never reached that point, then even better, because I never think you should be proud of your own work for more than like a couple of months, maybe a year. Because when you get proud, you get comfortable, and when you get comfortable, you get unwilling to move on and improve.
And speaking of that, is because I'm pretty much this year, I'm making my big step into just going, okay, stop being a chicken shit and
Start
do
making the
something
movement.
already. Like with this, what do you expect or do you want to see from me after years of hyping myself up?
Dude, I'm excited. Like, I talked to you a lot about the short film ideas that you've had, and I've seen a lot of what you've made with the music videos and the people you've been working with, and I'm very excited because I already know that your color work and your your lighting work is phenomenal. I know that your camera work and cinematography is fantastic. I know you've got a lot of good ideas that are at least original and interesting and creative. So I'm really excited to see you put it all together and make something completely new.
Because one thing I find about me is I'm too much of a perfectionist. Like, I won't work on a piece until like I'm like, okay, I need this bit of equipment, and for now, like, you know, I'm just putting that aside with this idea because I'm like, okay, it looks well on that camera, it looks well on this, I'm getting this PC, I have all the audio stuff, I have all the lighting, and it's scary, but I can't wait because this idea is probably like the most personal one as well. Obviously it's not going to be told, but it's the first time I'm really putting myself into a piece, which I'm really excited about. But anyway, that's pretty much all the questions I have, unless you have anything you want to say or anything you want to shout out.
Nothing I can think of. I was just excited to hear. I'm just excited to hear what you're going to be making.
Oh, at the moment it'll just be inside my bedroom, but because this year, because I'm going to be making, I've been teasing it, but because I've been so tired of making just a mini update soon, of just stuff I want to do. And as I said to you before this, I want to dabble into music making. One thing I definitely want to get back into when it's safe to is photography again, because that was just something I took for granted that I threw away. Like, I used to love going places, and now I'm just like, why did I took that for granted? And now I can't go without, like, I can only go to the shops and back. There's nothing interesting about that. And then, as you said,
You take a picture of all the people who are queuing up in Marks and Spencer's.
but then one thing you said that you want to get back into that I also want to get back into is short stories. Like, again, I have terrible handwriting, but there's just something satisfying about putting something onto a page instead of typing it. And
Yeah, yeah.
like, one thing I learned is just I just want to create and just experiment with it now. Maybe one day I'll dabble into graphic design, but that's further down the list. But thanks for being the first guest on whatever this is. Like, this isn't going to be something too infrequent, just whoever's free. And just, I like talking to other people outside of what I want to do. Like, graphic design I've know nothing about, so it's interesting to me hearing people's processes. Like, then I want to talk to other people who do music, other people who do photography, eventually people who do filmmaking, but those are the worst bunch. I should know, I'm one of them. But thank you, Josh, I won't keep you any longer. And yeah, we'll see what happens next. Anyway, take care.
Thanks for having me. You too.
Bye bye. And stop recording.